Morning, guys. Spencer here. One thing I want to talk to you guys about today is setting up a budget. Okay. So I've sat down with probably 35 different families, and there's one major indicator between families who are in debt and not in debt. And the number one indicator is this: they have a budget. All right. And that's for a couple things that they don't have a budget, right? So the families that don't have a budget who do end up having debt, right? And it's harder for them to achieve their financial goals is here's the thing I'll tell you is unless you have a budget, it's going to be hard to achieve financial goals, right? And so, before you even consider talking to anyone like me, a financial educator, or even a financial advisor, right? You should go to them with a budget because chances are they're going to tell you to have one anyways, right? So what if I told you that there is a budget software that you could use that's simple, there's no math involved, and it's actually going to make communication a lot easier. And the most important thing is this: you're going to have awareness, right? And without awareness, if you don't know where you are, how do you know where you're going? Right? So you need to have a budget. Okay. So what I'm going to do today is show you a really awesome budget tool, really a software that I use, and it can link between all your bank accounts. It can link between all your devices, right? So that way, anytime when you're like, oh, I got 5 minutes to spare because I'm waiting for the Uber, whatever, you could even budget right there and if you wanted to, right? So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay. So right now, this is the website. This is actually a Dave Ramsey product, right? And to be upfront, I don't agree with everything Dave Ramsey says, right? But there's one thing he does very well: teaches families how to develop a foundation for them to move forward in their finances. All right. I don't agree with him when it comes to investing, life insurance, but when he talks about debt, he is a phenomenal educator, right? So I highly, 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 highly recommend that if you do have debt and you're trying to figure out how do we move forward? How do we get out of debt? Dave Ramsey is actually a really good choice, right? And he has a program called EveryDollar, right? So right now, as you can see, I'm on the RamseySolution.com website. And if you find this website, you can at some point you can find the every dollar portion of this website, right? So you just click on, the every dollar, right? I'm already on this page. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and sign in. Okay. So here's my login info. Cool. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually show you how my budget is set up, right? Or not my budget, but I'm going to show you a different one. All right. So this is just a rough swag example, right, of how to create a budget. Okay. So for you guys, in here, this is actually a pretty simple budget, right? For this person, right, at the top, you start with income. And I actually went over this with a person, right? So, I sat here and said, okay, like how much money do you make? Well, and we can just make one up right now, right? So let's say you're the typical family, you know, um, the dad, or let's just say husband, let's go there, right? Husband makes 3 grand a month. Awesome, right? And then let's say that the wife, so let's just say they make 1,500 a month, right? And notice how you can play with this. So this program is actually a zero-based budget. So what do I mean by that, right? The goal is to get to zero in terms of how much money you have left over to spend. Okay. Because why do we want to do that? It's because if you're at zero, then you've assigned a mission, a task, whatever you want to call it, to every single dollar in your budget, right? So this example we're actually going to go through, okay? So if you believe in tithing, right, which is like 10%, so maybe we put 450 bucks here, right? And then, you keep moving your way through, right? Okay, now I have, this much money left, right? Because this is an example working off of somebody else, right? This is gonna change throughout. But notice how every time you change something, this number changes, right? Again, you don't have to do any math. So emergency fund, right? Do I believe people should have emergency fund? I think everyone should work towards 36 months, right? Again, if I, this is not me telling you, this is what I typically most people will tell you this anyways, right? So in their sense, right? And there's person's example, what if they just went by the rule of paying themselves 10% a month? Okay, so we tithe 10%, we pay ourselves 10%, and now we have 450 bucks. Okay, now let's make our way through, right? This person pays, let's go ahead and say it's 1,000 for you for rent, and then for water, $30, electricity, $50, right? They have electricity, typically don't have gas. And then, most people don't have cable, they have Netflix or whatever subscriptions, right? Phone bill for the family is $100, right? And then we can just keep going through, right? Fuel depends where you live, depends what kind of car you have, right? So this family, $200, okay? And if they're, a family of four, right? Let's just go ahead and say they do about $600 a month, right? Do they like to eat out once a month? Sure. Let's go ahead and say $100 there, right? This is an odd client I have. They have a lizard, so they put down lizard food. You notice how you can kind of play with this however you want, right? And there's a category that's like, well, really, let's say one spouse likes to spend more money eating out than the other, right? So my wife and I, we actually have our own dining out budget, right? So we could just do right here, husband dining out, he likes to spend 50 a month, and then the wife, let's say the wife likes to do $100 a month. Okay. Whatever, the best budget is the one that works for you, right? The one that works for you and your family that you agree on. Now, as we keep making our way through, you know, I think you guys get the gist, right? You go through here and you update these numbers how you best see fit. Okay. So, let's just say this person, they go to the gym in their local area, they happen to live in Surf City. They pay this much for their things. Auto insurance, let's just say that's $100 a month, right? Okay. Now, based off this person's budget, right? Wow, they have $1,174 left at the end of the month. Now that's great because we have awareness as to where we're going, right? And so this is a good thing for some people. They're like, well, every month I have random things that pop up. Okay, well then what if we plan for miscellaneous, right? So let's just say we went to lifestyle, right? Because that's part of our that's usually what it is, right? Maybe they get over, or maybe, not every month is perfect, right? Ideally, you would like to have a solid, like to the cent for every item, but that's not always the case, right? Like fuel. You can't say exactly how much you spend, but you have a general idea of how much you spend every month, right? It just depends how many miles you're putting in on that vehicle. So for miscellaneous, you could do $200, right? And then as you're going through this, you're like, wow, okay, because you have a budget, this is for a lot of people, this may be the first time you actually realize how much money is left over, right? And so moving forward, now you have an opportunity to go, okay, I know I can afford these things because there's an extra $974 to play with, right? Now, should you have goals? Absolutely. You should have financial dreams, financial goals, because again, if you've heard me talk before, then you'll know that I say this often, right? If you plan to be a spouse, a parent, a community leader, your kids that have kids, you have parents that like maybe they're not well off monetarily, and you want to be able to support them. Well, then guess what? If you love all these people, right? Then we should probably start thinking that our money isn't just for us, but it's for all those people that are tied to us in some way, shape, or fashion. Okay. So if you have $974 left a month, then great. The cool thing is this, we've already put in $200 a month of budget. Let's say in October, right? Or, my wife, for example, every 3 months, she likes to go get her hair done, right? Let's say October, this is that month. Okay. So in October, we go in here, we go, oh, that's right. Let's go ahead and add my wife, getting her hair done, right? Hair appointment, 150. I don't know. I've never gotten an hair appointment before. Okay. And then, oh, well, I don't like how this is structured. I want this alphabetical order. You can play around with it, right? Now, everything I showed you comes with the free version of this. Now, here's the really cool thing is the free version, you can have a budget and you can play with this, right? The paid version, this is how it works, is with the paid version, you get to allow the banks to sync all transactions onto this document, onto this thing, right? And this is the really cool thing. So before we do that, right, let's go ahead and budget the rest of this month, okay? So now I have $824 left, at least for this month. Let's go ahead and come up with a plan. Maybe we invest it, right? Or maybe, or maybe it goes to travel fund, whatever it is. But right here, we're just gonna go ahead and play with this, reinvest it, right? And here's the cool thing. Let's go to the summary. We now know we are saving 28% of our income. Okay. You guys notice how at the bottom over here, right? It tells us how much our total income is. It can even break it down. Okay. Now, this is the really cool thing, right? How do we better our awareness? I highly recommend you do the paid version of this. Okay. I know for me, this is 120 a month, or I'm sorry, 120 a year. So it's maybe 12 bucks a month, but you know how these subscriptions roll. Unless you do it annually, monthly is probably gonna be a little bit more expensive. I couldn't tell you what it is, right? And after this, I'm actually gonna put a link underneath the description so that you can get $10 off, right? So I think you'll be able to get it for 110, right? Just take a look at it after. So here's how the banks work, right? You can sync in all your banks, right? I know these have errors, but they're still coming in, so I just haven't really played with them much, right? And another cool thing is this, all the transactions do come in, okay? And so there's two things I would recommend, right? With these transactions, this is how it works. So as you see, we had McDonald's and Chick-fil-A recently, right? So I can go ahead and go, well, that was restaurant food, right? So let's go down to the restaurant category. That was both my wife and I. So I'm just gonna go ahead and click and drag. Notice how the money changed. Wonderful, right? No math. Let's do it again. Click and drag. Okay. And let's say that's all the money we spent at the end of the month, right? We budgeted for 100 bucks, but we only really spent what, $14.03, right? So let's do that. We know that we spent this much, so then we can change it to $14.03. Now we have another $85 to play with. Maybe we reappropriate that, right? Do we have another budget area that we went over? Okay, we can offset it because we have more money to play with, right? You guys see how this is now it's compounding your ability to go further down the road, right? Because when you're more aware, you can make decisions, right? And better decisions. Not being aware means, if you don't have a plan for your money plans itself out. Same thing with your time. If you don't have a plan for your time, your time plans itself out, right? So I like this budget tool. I've been using it since 2017. And it's just been a wonderful software. Now, the only cons that I will say with this is certain bank accounts or bank institutions they don't tie in with this, right? For example, right? Amex doesn't work with this, right? So what you could do in that situation is this. For Amex in particular, right? When you do get the Amex at transaction for paying it off, right? Because the accounts that this does get paid off to, it will just say Amex payment, right? Something along the lines there. So what you could do is you go into your Amex and you pull up off to the right hand side an Excel sheet or just a list. And you just create the transactions, right? And you can do that. You can go ahead and move this, right? So what you did see the whole time here is bottom to the right. There's this little thing, and unless you have the paid version, this is what you would do with the free version. Is okay. I know I spent 40 bucks today, right? Oh, and you know what? It wasn't today. It was actually yesterday. Okay. And then we just go ahead and say it was, I don't know, Popeye's chicken. And then you save it. And then notice how in here, it's actually saved to the right hand side. And then boom, you click and drag. No math is done. Wonderful, right? So, big fan of this product, right? It will allow you to have awareness. And like I said, half the families that I meet that struggle, just about every family that struggles with debt, they don't have a budget. All the families that don't have debt and they're on their way to making a lot more money, they just don't know where their money needs to go, right? The fact is they have budgets and they know where the money is. Okay. The problem isn't you spend, I don't make enough money, or if I had more money, I would be better off. The issue is you can't manage unless you have awareness. Make a budget. If you have questions for me, hit me up anytime. You guys can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn. And if hit me up directly on Facebook Messenger, I'll text you my number and we can, anytime I can actually sit down with you and help build a budget, right? It's part of my business where I do financial education and I would love to sit down with you, okay? So I love helping families with this because this is what helped me get out $145,000 of debt doing this since 2017. Try it out. Let me know how it goes. Talk to you soon.